Who was Lawrence of Arabia? Most people just think of Lawrence of Arabia as an Oscar-winning film from the 1960s. However, Lawrence was a real person who helped the British in dividing the Ummah so that the British and French could control the Middle East. Thomas Edward Lawrence, born on the 16th of August, 1888, was a British Army officer, archaeologist, diplomat, and writer best known for his role during the Arab Revolt and Sinai and Palestine campaign against the Ottoman Empire in the First World War. During World War I, the Sharif of Mecca, Hussein bin Ali, and the British High Commissioner to Egypt, Sir Henry McMahon, were in communication with each other from 1915 to 1916, in which the British promised the Sharif an independent Arab state after the war, in exchange for launching an Arab revolt against the Ottoman Empire. The Sharif was convinced by the British, and so the Sharif's sons, Ali and Faisal, attacked the holy city of Medina in an attempt to take it from the Ottomans. After 3 days of attacks, they were unable to defeat the Ottomans, so they retreated. However, they had more success in besieging the holy city of Mecca and the town of Taif. While this was going on, the British were bombing the Ottoman forts across the port cities of the Red Sea. It was at this time that the British then sent Lawrence to liaise with the Arab leadership, as he was fluent in Arabic, which he had learnt in Lebanon, and he also had vast knowledge about the Arab regions, having worked on excavations on behalf of the British Museum. Lawrence was an advisor to the Sharif's son Faisal. Although they had some success over the Ottomans, Lawrence was not impressed by Faisal's forces, as he said,
"One company of Turks firmly entrenched in open country could have defied the entire army of them, and a pitched defeat would have ended the war by sheer horror."
The Arab revolt simply didn't have enough fighters to take on the Ottomans. This was probably due to the fact that the majority of Arabs didn't support the Arab revolt. All across the Middle East, the majority were loyal to the Ottoman Empire and were against the idea of Arab nationalism. To put this into context, 500,000 British troops were fighting the Ottomans, while the number of Arabs fighting were only around 3,500. Lawrence then realized that with such low numbers, the best thing they could do is attack the Hejaz Railway to cut the Ottomans' supply line into Arabia. Small groups would blow up sections of the track, bridges, and water towers. They would also attack some stations that were weakly defended. The British were keen for the Ottomans to be preoccupied by the Arab revolt so that the British can invade Palestine. While the British promised the Sharif an Arab state, they were also negotiating with the French in the Sykes-Picot Agreement, on which territories will be controlled by them after the war. The British also published the Balfour Declaration, which promised the establishment of a Jewish nation in Palestine. Despite the Arabs having disagreements with the British over these agreements, they continued to attack the Hejaz Railway and help the British. The Arabs were hoping that the reality on the ground will be different than that of any paper agreement. The British troops then swiftly advanced through Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. The Ottoman Empire then agreed to an armistice. The Arab leaders were now in negotiations with the British over the future of the region. These negotiations were, however, unsuccessful. Instead of the Middle East becoming an Arab state as promised, it was partitioned into sections and zones controlled by Britain and France. Later, Lawrence of Arabia revealed the truth about the so-called Arab Revolt.
"The cabinet raised the Arabs to fight for us by definite promises of self-government afterwards. So I had to join the conspiracy, and for what my word was worth, assured the men of their reward. In our 2 years' partnership under fire, they grew accustomed to believing me and to think my government, like myself, was sincere. Instead of being proud of what we did together, I was continually and bitterly ashamed. It was evident from the beginning that if we won the war, these promises would be dead paper. And had I been an honest advisor to the Arabs, I would have advised them to go home and not risk their lives fighting for such stuff. But I salved myself with the hope that by leading these Arabs madly in the final victory, I would establish them, with arms in their hands, in a position so assured, if not dominant, that expediency would counsel to the great powers a fair settlement of their claims. It was an immodest presumption. I risked the fraud on my conviction that Arab help was necessary to our cheap and speedy victory in the East, and better we win and break our word than lose.
In conclusion, Lawrence, along with the British, put an end to the last Islamic empire using greed and lies. The Muslims have been divided ever since, as we have adopted this Western ideology of nationalism. We can only hope and pray that we will be united again soon and break away from the current state that the Ummah is in.